lawsuits and jail for stories that the Pentagon didn't approve of being out in the media.
I know. I'm going to talk to him about that, too. I mean, reporters are still reporting, of course, but it does say something about Pete Hegseth that he is cracking down on media in a way that no Secretary of Defense ever has before. But anyone, get right to it, Allie, but I'll see you tomorrow.
I'll see you tomorrow. Have a great show.
Okay. Do you want to know how I know that Donald Trump had a very, very bad day today? Because tonight, just about 24 hours after he announced a ceasefire with Iran, he wasn't posting about his ceasefire with Iran. Nope, he was posting about NATO and Greenland in all caps. And I will tell you, I mean, posts about NATO and Greenland in all caps are kind of a dead giveaway that things are not going well elsewhere. And yes, in what is perhaps the least surprising turn of events, Trump's big 2-week ceasefire deal with Iran is kind of falling apart. And why is it not surprising? It's not surprising to me at all. Because despite all the claims that the U.S. and Iran had come to some sort of a historic ceasefire, as they shouted it from the rooftops last night, it seemed like they never actually agreed on the basic parameters for negotiating the biggest issues. I mean, they never agreed on how the Strait of Hormuz would reopen and whether Iran would continue to control it. They never agreed on whether or not the ceasefire included Lebanon. They never agreed on whether or not Iran having the right to enrich uranium as part of their nuclear program was even on the table. None of that was apparently nailed down before this deal was announced last night. And so today, it all fell apart. Not surprising at all. Iran's Fars news agency reported that the Strait of Hormuz has been reclosed over Israel's continued strikes in Lebanon. Bloomberg reports that just 3 ships actually made it through the strait. Before the war, 135 ships sailed through there every single day, just to give you a sense of the context there. And Iran is reportedly hoping to extract payment from ships for safe passage, a real boon for Iran, something they have already been doing. Throughout the day, Iran continued to fire missiles at our Gulf allies in the region. And by this afternoon, the Speaker of Iran's parliament had accused the United States of violating the agreement altogether, saying, quote, in such a situation, a bilateral ceasefire or negotiations is unreasonable. So, everyone, less than 24 hours later, other than that, everything seems to be going great. Now, on the question of what Donald Trump has actually achieved in this war of choice that he is now desperately and unsuccessfully trying to unwind, well, all Trump needed to do, and I bet he was doing this, we know his TV habits, was turn on his favorite Fox Morning show today to know that he has achieved basically nothing.
The president's demands, we have not reached any of those objectives. I have full confidence that the president is going to find some way to make this happen. But he said that we want to dismantle all major nuclear facilities. That has not happened. The end of uranium enrichment on the soil, they're still enriching. The transfer of the enriched uranium stockpiles out of Iran, that hasn't happened. The acceptance of intrusive international inspections, they're still not willing to do that. And they have not suspended their ballistic missiles program. They're still firing them off to stop the production of the long-range missiles. That's just a few of them on the president's proposal.
That was on Fox this morning. They had graphics. He prepared what he was going to say there, and it was definitely not a ringing endorsement. So Trump hasn't achieved much of anything, in his deal to end this disastrous war appears to also be in tatters already. But if you just listen to the Trump administration or their allies in that universe of MAGA land, you would think that Trump got everything he wanted and it was just all about to end. Time to roll out the mission accomplished banner. Trump literally told a French news outlet that the deal was a, quote, total and complete victory. And Secretary of Maximum Lethality Pete Hegseth took his own victory lap in a very Pete Hegsethian way.
Iran begged for this ceasefire, and we all know it. Operation Epic Fury was a historic and overwhelming victory on the battlefield. A capital V military victory.
And then he dropped to the ground and did 20 push-ups and kissed his muscles. Not really. I mean, just metaphorically. He thought about it. I think he thought about it. But when things aren't going well, all you can do is pound your chest and claim victory with a capital V, as Pete Hegseth just did. Or you can do whatever the hell this is.
Democrats are already saying that this is taco. Trump always chickens out. Let me give you another acronym. Nacho. Never avoids confronting hard obstacles.
Okay. Griff there, that's his name, Griff, was probably so proud of himself when he wrote that down this morning in big block letters and practiced it in the mirror. But the fact is, as the day rolled on, it became harder and harder and harder to deny the reality that this deal was falling apart. That became abundantly clear when reporters caught up with the Trump administration's highest-ranking negotiator by their own definition in these peace talks, Vice President J.D. Vance. Here he was today being asked a very valid question about when the strait would reopen.
Mr. Vice President, Iran is continuing to block the Straits of Hormuz. Do you have an expectation of when that strait is going to be open?
Well, we've already seen an increase in traffic today. Hopefully we'll see an increase in traffic tomorrow. We actually think that we are seeing signs that the Straits is starting to reopen.
Okay. So we've seen an increase in traffic today. That's what the vice president just said. As I mentioned before, Bloomberg reports that just 3 ships were observed leaving the region, at least 2 of which had ties to Iran. Iran is publicly claiming that the strait remains closed. They're continuing, as far as we know, to charge fees to people who want to go through. But J.D. Vance has nothing to worry about. All signs are positive. Then he was asked another perfectly valid question from a reporter about Iran's claim that the U.S. has already violated the agreement.
Tweeted out that 3 of the 10 points in the ceasefire framework have already been violated. They're distrustful of the U.S. What do you make of him tweeting that out before negotiations?
So I thought it was interesting, actually, because I did see that tweet from Ghalibaf actually just a couple of minutes ago. Let me just say this. I actually wonder how good he is at understanding English, because there are things that he said that, frankly, didn't make sense in the context of the negotiations that we've had.
Okay, so just to unpack that one. The Speaker of Iran's parliament said that the U.S. violated the deal, and J.D. Vance's answer was, well, he just needs to brush up on his English. Maybe it was a translation issue. Again, J.D. Vance is the official who is supposed to sit across from the Iranians in these negotiations in just a few days. Now, if you thought that was a reach, just listen to how J.D. Vance tried to explain away the differences between Iran and the U.S. on the question of nuclear enrichment.
The second thing Ghalibaf said, which, again, I found fascinating, is he said, we refuse to give up the right to enrichment. And I thought to myself, you know what? My wife has the right to skydive, but she doesn't jump out of an airplane because she and I have an agreement that she's not going to do that because I don't want my wife jumping out of an airplane.
I have so many questions. Like, what on earth are you talking about? Also, are you saying that you trust the Iranians won't enrich uranium even if they have access, just like you trust your wife won't jump out of a plane? I still don't think it clears anything up. I don't know where that came from. Now, all of this is even more concerning when you consider that J.D. Vance is supposed to be the one voice in the room who actually opposes the war. But as the New York Times reported last night, Vance is apparently too timid to actually do anything about it, aside from, of course, pitch stories about how he privately opposed the war, which he seems to be doing a lot of. When Trump was weighing whether or not to launch this disastrous war, Vance reportedly told the president, you know, I think this is a bad idea, but if you want to do it, I'll support you. Way to be bold. Use your voice there, J.D. That's the extent, as far as we know, of the pushback Trump has gotten from some of his closest advisors as he continues to make one bad decision after another in this conflict. And it's a stark contrast to the kind of pushback Trump reportedly got during his first administration when contemplating military action in Iran. In his book, Peril, legendary journalist, sitting right across from me right now, Bob Woodward, recounted some of the debates Trump had with his first-term advisors on the subject of striking Iran. And he wrote, quote, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Joint Chiefs Chairman Mark Milley went back and forth like a tag team, underscoring the reasons not to take any military action. Vice President Pence and Acting Defense Secretary Miller seemed to agree that no military action should be taken. Okay, thanks, Trump said. As Milley once said to an advisor, the whole Iran thing comes and goes and comes and goes and comes and goes. CIA Director Gina Haspel was worried about the lack of a clear decision and called Milley. This is a highly dangerous situation. We're going to lash out for his ego? And later that night, Pompeo called Milley, thanked him for arguing against the strike and emphasizing the downsides. We're all good, Milley said, emphasizing the importance of calm and piling on the metaphors. Just steady, breathe through our noses. Steady as a rock. We're going to land this plane safely. We've got a plane with 4 engines and 3 of them are out. We've got no landing gear, but we're going to land this plane and we're going to land it safely. But this time around, no one is planning to land the plane safely. Everyone in Trump 2.0, or most people, at least that we know about, just seem along for the ride. And now the same people who let Trump get us into this war are bungling their best opportunity to get us out of it. Joining me now is legendary journalist Bob Woodward. He is an associate editor of The Washington Post and author of the forthcoming book, Secrets, a Reporter's Memoir, which is out in September, and I can't wait to read it. It's going to be all over my Christmas list. Thank you for being here. I want to start by asking, you said that the decision to go to war is a measure of national leadership. It says something about the person making that decision says about Trump?
Well, it's the most important defining decision to say, oh, this is a country we want to mobilize our military against and kill people and, all kinds of damage. War is ugly. I was in the Navy during the Vietnam War on a ship, not in Vietnam, but I got a sense of what that war was, is a tragedy. And now, look at the situation we're in, where the President of the United States, Donald Trump, has started a war. It's not somebody else. Normally, in the national security world in the United States, somebody else starts it, or we get attacked. But here he has started a war. It's one of the most, I've done this for 55 years. It's one of the most reckless, dangerous, gyrating, disturbing decisions by Commander-in-Chief I've ever heard of.
You've written, for anyone who's read your books, I've read your books, many people watching have read your books, you've written about the fact that Trump has thought about Iran for a long time. He's wanted to strike Iran, wanted to do something. He was walked off the ledge of it by Mark Milley and others. Why do you think he moved forward this time?
Well, I think he just hasn't thought it through, and that he has lost touch with what war is. People die, mass destruction, and to be in this mess is tragic for the country. Quite frankly, I think it's tragic for him because he's not going to be able to explain it. And it looks like Iran is not just folding like a cheap suit, but is fighting back. And so we are in this situation. I got to know Trump in 2020 when I did hours of interviews with him. And he's somebody who wants to justify all of his actions, but he doesn't understand consequence. He doesn't, you do this, you say this, it's going to have a consequence. He's removed and oblivious, and it's a very sad occasion for him, for the Republican Party, which has been shockingly spineless in a situation like this. And I don't know how you dig out of that hole. Let's hope he can do it.
Do you think he has any idea where this is headed, or has thought through in any way? I don't think he has, but what do you think?
Well, no, night before last, he was saying it's going to be the end of a civilization in Iran. And then he turned around, as he does on a dime, and said, well, we're going to hold off everything for 2 weeks. He does not know where he's going. And once Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, very close to the president, said, and I have impeccable firsthand sources on this, the way to understand Trump, you have to look at Alice in Wonderland, the Cheshire Cat. And the Cheshire Cat says, if you don't know where you're going, any path will get you there.
That's a chilling comparison for anyone who's seen Alice in Wonderland. Yes,
but from somebody very close to the president, trying to understand him and his actions. It's a way of saying, let's face it, he does not know where he's going. He does not understand what the fundamentals of national security should be.
One of the factors that we've long suspected, but we learn more about from the reporting from Jonathan Swan and Maggie Haberman, is the role, of course, of Prime Minister Netanyahu. I mean, their reporting says that he was in the Situation Room. He convinced Trump to move forward. I've only worked for 2 presidents. You've covered many more. But Prime Minister Netanyahu has been trying to convince presidents to do this for some time. Why do you think that he was able to do it this time?
Well, I know from my own reporting, and I'm sorry I jotted this down because I want to be literal about what he said. Netanyahu cannot be trusted. There was a scene where he was here in 2023, and he wanted to attack Hezbollah. Now, Hezbollah is the terrorist group in the Middle East.
Very present in Lebanon.
Yeah, and has 150,000 rockets, one of the most armed, much more armed than most countries in the Middle East. And Netanyahu is saying, hey, look, we have intelligence, that they are going to attack us, Israel. We want to go first. And he said, we have intelligence that paragliders are coming in. They are killing people. So our CIA, better tuned in, jumped on this and said, what's this? Not paragliders, birds.
Just lying.
We were going to, well, misunderstanding, not having the necessary intelligence to get it right. This is not an unserious moment. It's one of the most serious moments for the country. And to mix up paragliders with birds, I mean, so we're on the edge of an all-out war in the Middle East. Jake Sullivan, who was Biden's national security advisor, somebody nonpartisan, somebody who did that job very well by all accounts, Democrats, Republicans, left, right, said it was one of the most horrifying moments of his professional life because we would go to the brink for no reason.
Yeah, and here we are. Yesterday, Trump posted, you referenced this already, online, that a whole civilization will die tonight and never be brought back again. It sometimes is easy to become numb to the bombastic language of Trump, but this is a case, again, where you've covered so many presidents, you have so many sources of what they've said privately. Have you ever heard a president even talking that way privately or anything like that? Put it into perspective for us.
No, I mean, there's the perspective is that it is, as I say, reckless. It is one of these things, the idea that a president would talk and think that way and then turn on a dime, as he did, and say, okay, we're going to have a 2-week stand down. What does he call it? Not a pause, but I mean, we're just going to have no more fighting for a while. Strategic stand downs generally are for the purpose of getting people together to talk and make peace. But this just sounds like, well, we're going to have 2 weeks off and then we'll resume. And it's done this for, as I say, too many decades. And to see this perilous moment instigated by a president deciding to start a war. Sometimes presidents have carelessly become involved in war, or a couple of times started one on the basis of faulty intent.